So we're moving on to the next question. The next question is what? Flip your page over, be on the back. What? And the question here we're actually going to ask is what to say. So let's turn to Revelation 12, verse 11. And if anyone's like real quick to get there, they can read it, or I will. Revelation 12, verse 11.
I got it, Ben. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death.
Yeah, powerful word there. You can write it down just to remember that, Revelation 12, 11. And yeah, so this is sharing your testimony can be something pretty intimidating, and I get that. I understand that it can be very personal, very intimate. But I want to train you in something that has been tremendously helpful for me in sharing the gospel and sharing my testimony. And it's called the 15-second testimony. And you may say, well, how in the world am I supposed to tell my testimony in 15 seconds? Well, this is not your life story. This is a tool in which to share with those in even everyday conversation. And I will tell you that I'm using this regularly in everyday conversation. So you can write at the top, 15-second testimony. That's just the tool's name. And we want to start off, so this is simple. We want to, other side. You can go ahead and write
Ben,
down.
can I interrupt for a moment?
Go ahead.
On your paper, make sure that you only use like the top half because there's going to be something else coming for the bottom half.
I've already prepped my sheet.
To save space.
Yeah, draw a line in half. So you're right. Yep, very good. Line in the middle. So this is the top half. And so when we're telling our testimony, when I'm doing this in everyday conversation, and just this very morning at 5:50, my son wakes up and is distraught because he can't find his little stuffed bear. And I know it was in bed with him last night because I tucked him in. And he's not supposed to be awake at 5:50 in the morning. So I go into his room and I search in his bed and we can't find it. It's not there. And he is just so worried because he knew he's going to his uncle and aunt's house. Is where he is now. But he was so worried that he wouldn't be able to find it in order to take it there and have it with him. So I lay down beside him in bed, help him try to fall back asleep. And I just start telling him a 15-second testimony. I say, you know what? He's 4 years old, but I'm using this even here. I'm like, there was a time in my life, and this is just an easy way to enter into this conversation. There was a time in my life when I was worried, and this is what he is experiencing. He's experiencing worry. And I felt like my life was falling apart. And then I read in the Bible that Jesus says, do not worry. And so I came to him in prayer and gave him my worry. And in place of my worry, he gave me peace. And I said to him at the end, I asked him a question, do you want to know freedom from worry like that? That's maybe a bit intense for a 4-year-old asking all that. But he responded by saying, I know. We can pray and ask Jesus to help us find little bear. And I said, absolutely. And so we prayed. And then he was immediately calm and silent. And that was it. Now, that's just from this morning, early this morning. But you see what I just did there. I took a simple story of my life, didn't have really any details, and I was able to bring Jesus into the situation in which he's experiencing worry, and then be able to bring it to where Jesus is the center, where he's the one who gets the glory of this conversation. So an easy way to start off is to say, there was a time in my life, and then I want you to draw a couple lines here that fill in the blank. And in this, you can say, there was a time in my life when, and something that you've gone through. For me, it was depression, and I didn't want to live. So it could be just like a one sentence or two words that just give just a brief example from your life. Not lots of detail here, just this 15 seconds. So, write that down. Something from your life. And then we want to write down below. So then I want you to draw a cross, and below that, two more lines. And this is what happened when you met Jesus, when Jesus enters into the story, your story. And for me, that was, I said, there was a time in my life when I was experiencing depression. I didn't want to live. And then I encountered the one who is life. So I'm going to write down here underneath the cross. Sorry, my notes are here. I had to repent of my attempt to make life my own, and Jesus gave me life instead. So now, and I'm not so good at talking and writing at the same time, but we'll see I did. And then on the other side of the cross, I want you to write two more lines. And this is what you're experiencing now as a result of Jesus. So when Jesus entered the story, and then the next part is now. And so now I'm experiencing joy, and I enjoy living. I want to live. Jesus is my life. And so we are going to practice this. So, please write something down here. Just, it's a word, two words, or just a sentence here. And at the end, a very important part is to ask a question. And I just wrote down a basic question here. Do you want to know Jesus like that? And again, when I'm using this in regularly in just everyday conversation, when Jesus enters into the story, I find, I should just say, I have little to offer. I am realizing how little I have to offer in most even basic everyday situations, but Jesus has so much to offer. And in recognizing this, I'm recognizing that he's the way. When my son can't find the little bear and he's worried, I'm wanting to point to Jesus. Jesus is the way to be free from worry. Jesus' truth that says that we don't have to worry. And Jesus is the life. It gives us the freedom from worry. And that's real life. We recognize, Jesus is the way, truth, and life in this, what we're doing. So, and again, that last question is important, that we're inviting people into what we're talking about. And allowing them to respond to Jesus, to what we're saying, bringing them in closer. The second part of this, so on the bottom, and right, 3 circles. This is the second gospel sharing tool, and this is a simple way to share the gospel. And again, I've been using this regularly. I, start talking to somebody and we're going to draw a diagram. And I drew this on the hood of a car in the snow. This car was covered in snow. I just drew out these 3 circles in the snow. You can do it on a napkin. I'm regularly doing it on a piece of paper and just handing it to people. So let me just go ahead and start with this 3 circles. So when you turn on the news, you read what's happening in the world. It's not hard to know that the world is broken. And you can go ahead and draw a circle, a crack in it. The world is broken. And yet we know that in the beginning, we want to believe that things were good. Or at least sometimes we can get glimpses of it, that, when the snow is covering the ground, like this morning, it's just so beautiful outside, that there is good in this world. And it comes from somewhere. And we just believe that in the beginning, God made things good and perfect. And you can draw another circle with a heart in it. Now, what happened? Sin entered the world. And God's goodness and plan for the world, when sin happened, the world was broken. And things were just not as God meant them to be. And so now that we're in this broken world, you'll notice that a lot of people, and maybe you're experiencing this too, are trying to get back to God's goodness, God's good plan. And they're doing that through, really trying to escape the brokenness by working. Maybe it's through earning a lot of money, being successful, being seen as successful. Maybe it's by doing what they think is the right thing to do. Even just trying to be godly and go to church and be a nice person. And in some ways, this manifests itself in trying to escape through drugs and alcohol, through just different relationships and attempting to escape the reality. But so often, what actually happens is that these things only go back into this broken world. It's not a real escape. And in a lot of ways, they actually break things more. And things are further broken because of these attempts. So I believe there's one way out. There's one real one way out, and that is to turn and believe in someone greater than ourselves. So I believe that Jesus came, he died, and that's where I have a down arrow. He died, and then he died on the cross for our sins, and then was restored back to life by God, and now is king. I have a little crown there on top of the circle. Is king, and is the one who stands in our place and takes away the sin. And now we can be restored. If I can move right. We can be restored back into God's good plan and experience God's goodness. And again, we want to ask a question, allowing people to respond, inviting them into this. And a simple way is to ask them, which of these 2 circles are you experiencing, the broken or the God's good plan? Which of these 2 circles? Or it can be to ask, do you want to experience the same returning to God's good plan? You want to experience Jesus as your king?